before it dies.
Yeah, and so, we were calling every dentist, of course, nobody wants to answer the phone on, 8 o'clock at night on a Saturday during the holidays, and so, yeah.
Was it a baby tooth?
It was, yeah. We sat down in the dentist chair, and he took a look at it, and he said, well, the good news is it's a baby tooth. I said, and had we had a minute of sanity to sit and think about it, we would have probably come to that conclusion, because I asked him, does it hurt? He's like, no, I mean, he's bleeding, but he's like, if you're not hurting, I'm gonna guess it hurts.
It does, I know.
It was just mad chaos. And
And that's what I would have liked to have.
I said after 15 phone calls, we finally got a dentist who works out of Boulder to answer. Of course, an after-hours fee and a visit and all that. I'm self-employed, so with dental insurance is pay out of pocket, and so. Always fun.
Peace of mind, though.
It ended up costing us $250 or something like that. And
Oh, that's.
completely worth it to me to, for one, know, and two, to have the best possible outcome with the baby.
That could have been much more damage to the pocket, too.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, he said even if you just wired it back in place, you were looking at $1,000 plus.
Yeah.
So, it was an interesting.
Oh, thanks.
So, Hi.
Steve Jordan's, Tracy's supposed to be showing up. Everyone else is either out of town or.
I'm bad makeup because I went to the gym.
I just came from both.
We need one more person. So we are.
Yeah, my son does Ninja Zone.
Because,
Where is that?
Mountain Kids. So,
So
it's his.
Tracy's normally pretty good about telling me she can't make it, so I'm assuming that if I didn't hear from her, it means she's gonna be here.
Balanced diet. That's like my diet all the time, unfortunately.
This committee is full of personal shortfall. Who would have thought? How are you doing, Karen? Are you making all your Christmas gifts?
Matt's
I just
might be
made a
able to
ton
run
of
down
jewelry.
with his girls. I think he's by himself, Sagamore.
That's how I met
He
you.
could get him for a few minutes.
I have it this weekend.
Yep, I remember that.
Not yet, yeah.
That was awesome.
That was awesome.
That's happening.
Which
right now.
actually ended up
No,
being.
my friend's having it at her house, so it's not yet.
But they wiped it and they didn't touch anything.
Actually, Louisville, right near the
This
hot
time of year in this small community where you're all treated to your children at the school.
It was April. Wedding. I was on birthday for me. Place. I think it was the worst thing I've ever had, but I said, oh, it can't be the flu. And then my son
Natural
was
pearls
crying.
with a little,
And my oldest was complaining of neck
earrings.
I have one
Yeah.
red,
Which is,
covered with red.
well, but also
Ruby?
sign.
Garnet.
So it's like, well, now we're going.
I don't know about your next one.
So, and they, the doctor was like, yeah, bring them in, and they swabbed them, and it was positive. We got them, and if you get in within 48 hours of symptoms, they will give you the,
Made
what's the
I
drug
have a
medicine,
lot of
not
spot
like
burns,
Tamiflu.
I'll show it.
But it has to be within, so my husband and I just had to suck it up under. I just keep dealing, because we were, at that point, I was like 5 days, so we were like, same thing for my husband, someone's like,
Oh, perfect.
or I see him on, they could you drop off?
So like, you should say more like,
Perfect.
more like, yeah.
Hello.
We're glad you're here.
All right, so we can go ahead and call this to order. OSAC December 14th meeting. I'm Ken Lish. OSAC Chair.
Go ahead. Tracy Collar, committee member. Karen Taylor, committee member.
Joel White, committee member.
Patricia Dunham, vice chair.
Allison James, staff liaison.
And Sandy Pennington, trustee liaison.
All right. No public, so no public comment. Getting into our first agenda item is reviewing the 2017 work plan. I sent it out to everybody. We kind of went through it line by line last meeting and got into it in pretty good depth. Did anybody have any changes that they wanted made or anything they wanted to add? All right. Again, I will mention that this this work plan is definitely the most ambitious plan we've had in a while. I think the redoing our open space plan alone could take up the majority of our time. So keeping a lot of this on here, in addition to that, is going to be rough. But I think it's something we can do, and it might take a little bit more communication through emails outside of the team. But that plan we have is so old that it's not doing us any good anymore. And I think if we're going to try to get open space back at the top of everyone's list, with so little remaining, that it'd be good to get that updated. So Sean had sent me some comments. I was trying to pull them up. Okay. Under the first quarter, for the line item that says continue to work with the, actually I guess it's ongoing. Here we go. Continue to work with the town board and staff to acquire high priority open space. Sean's comment, perhaps we need to look at all existing land for sale, not just what is a priority more than 10 years ago. The way development is going, it is almost to a point where we should consider grabbing whatever we can. I agree. When we look at our plan, I don't think we're going to limit ourselves to what was in that original or the current open space plan. I think it'll be a holistic view. So I think what we have in here currently addresses Sean's first comment. Sean's second comment under the item of continue to monitor and provide input on the Superior Town Center. Sean thought we might want to add and other properties that are open for development. I mean, I think that makes sense. I thought we might have had some of that in there. Continue to
I guess that could be number 9, but I don't think, I mean, I think adding, Superior Town Center and other development plans are, I think doesn't matter if we add it there specifically.
Yep, I agree. And I was thinking number 9 is where we had that covered, but yeah, we can say and other developments.
Yeah.
Monitor and provide input on the Superior Town Center and other
While you're on that item, we may want to reword it to say downtown Superior Development and
because they're rebranding it, right? Yeah.
They've already rebranded it.
Yeah, it's been rebranded to Downtown Superior.
Downtown
Superior.
Development. Okay.
Singular, right?
Oh, yep. I think that might have been the only place where we had referenced to the Superior Town. Nope.
TC buffer there, too.
Downtown Superior buffer. Should we just call that Tract 8? Is that what that is?
You could put it in parentheses if you want to, tract H.
H. That's what it is. Okay. Sean's third comment, under develop the next steps and recommendations for the Shan Shan open space. He recommends that we move this up to Q1 or Q2 and make it a higher priority since the Rogers Farm property development is accelerating. Let's see, where do we?
Ongoing.
Yeah.
I saw it down here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we should keep it there because that gives us the ability to not just focus on it in one quarter, but to kind of deal with it throughout.
So, I mean, two questions around that. What's the time track on the Rogers Farm? And then two, what's the time period when the building can come down? Because that's kind of contingent on doing anything, right?
Yeah.
So the building will be removed this next year.
Yeah.
So,
I think it's June, right?
Yeah, I heard summer. I think this summer is the last update.
We had
I
to give
heard.
it 3 years, so, and we bought it like May, June, so I would assume that, I don't know that it would be immediately in June, but that's when we could, or
Yeah.
the town could take it
And
down. Their obligation is done, I
You
guess.
could put that specific step in Q1. Check with the board about plan to remove Shan Shan Cave House in June.
Bunker?
Yeah. If you want to.
Yeah.
So how were we saying that? Monitor plans to remove Shan Shan
Or-
structure, or
Ask
I would
board
say
of
more,
the. No, but they had, in the agreement, they had the right to store equipment in there, or had rights to whatever they had for equipment or whatnot in there.
why not say ask board for schedule to remove
Shan Shan.
Shan Shan
structure.
structure, which becomes available in June.
Yep. Because that's true. It just means that we could remove it. I don't know that the town has scheduled a removal of it, only that our obligation is up.
Okay. Perfect. And I think you had one more comment. Number 4. So monitor the Hodgson Harris Reservoir rehabilitation. His question is, what does this mean and its purpose? The reason why that was on there is because we had worked as a committee and as a town to get the reservoir refilled, and we wanted to monitor the waterfowl coming back, if they were coming back, the numbers, the variety, that sort of thing. Yep,
Yeah.
this is the one off of 88th. And I was actually going to touch base on that later this evening, but I didn't know about this. I found out at the board meeting on Monday night. There's a citizen science project going on with Boulder County. There was a person who came and spoke during public comment who's been doing the observations, and there's been a large variety of birds that have come back, and it's been really successful. So I was going to go back and try to find out what her name was and try to get those exact numbers from her. But I think this is something we'd want to keep on our list just one more year so we can kind of come full circle with it and wrap it up with firm numbers.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. I appreciate knowing what's happening and the progress that the committee has actually made.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was,
Which one are you talking about, Ken?
Sorry.
Ongoing.
Oh,
yep, I apologize. I never scrolled down to it.
okay.
Yep.
That resident who brought that up was Susan Bauer,
Susan Bauer.
and I can get you her email address if you want it.
Yeah, that would be excellent. Save me the legwork of trying to track her
Right.
down. So,
Do we know where Zaharias's development is? I know they brought something.
yeah, so there was, and I was going to touch on this later, but
Oh,
we
well,
can,
we can do it later then if you have it on.
I was just going to do it during the updates and look ahead. I didn't have it on the schedule because
Okay, that's
didn't realize it was going to go in front. But we can bring it up now just because it relates. There was a Zaharias property concept plan before the board this past Monday night. Again, that for everybody, the Zaharias property is the one next to 88th, right next to the Hodgson Harris Reservoir. It showed a number of apartments. I think it's 250 something dwelling units. From a OSAC perspective, I actually was fairly impressed with what they've done. They've got 4 acres of open space dedicated at the southern end of it. So
around the
yeah,
around the reservoir.
the
then.
part of their property that borders the reservoir. They've got a path that goes along it that includes 3 sections of boardwalk, which we don't have at other parts within our town. They have got connection points to connect to the other trails in our trail network that are adjacent to that property. And within the property, they actually have a kind of circular trail or path that goes all the way around. So they've done a decent job. Oh, and they also, on the northern side of the property, between the property and Highway 36, there's some wetlands up there. They've indicated they're going to preserve those wetlands. So from an open space perspective, I think they've actually done a better job than many of the other developments we've seen.
How big is the acreage that they're developing?
24.3, 23.8, something like
On
that.
net, though, wasn't it 18, something like that? Yeah.
Development,
Um,
yeah.
After you subtract the 4-acre dedication and
Yeah,
all that
that's what I
kind of
was
stuff.
curious about, is what kind of percentage that they were, I mean, so 4 out of 24 it seems?
No, they meet the 35% or whatever.
Yeah, they had
that's
parks in there
required.
also.
Yeah, they have
They-
a
it was
park
just-
in the center.
Yeah, it was just a specific 4 acres at the bottom that they
Gotcha.
were saying
Yeah.
is all open space.
But the board was not on net
Yeah.
wild about the plan because of the 256 properties. The original, the comp plan had something like 85 or 90 properties in there. And there was a traffic and safety meeting a week ago, Monday, Ken? And so it's a complex situation because 88th Street is already sort of at capacity. Weldona is a common cut-through street that leads to 88th. And then the town center, Coal Creek, which connects via Akron to Weldona, could well go through the town center as if the current planned development takes place the way it would. Coal Creek Drive, the one off Rock Creek, could well go through the town center. So we're having a number of issues that all affect each other. And the prospect of having the cars in traffic from 256 properties there, and then right across the street, by the little further north, is the Anderson property that could also develop. So we're having to be really cautious because unfortunately, 88th is sort of constrained to being 2-lane traffic, one each way, as long as that bridge that crosses 36 is 2 lanes. So this is a case of really having to be
Can you
pretty
connect
cautious.
on the eastern border to whatever the
36.
mall, the Flatirons, whatever that road is between the Flatirons?
That
Or are
was
they
certainly
like-
not proposed.
I don't think they have I don't think they own all the property that goes
Right.
that far. Yeah, and just,
I just didn't know what was on the eastern border.
It's also zoned commercial, I believe, in the comp plan.
Yep.
So, it involves a rezoning, really a
Yep.
rethinking of, since I've been on the board, we've thought about it as senior amenities, and more of at least a mixed-use type of project. And, but I agree with Ken, the attention they've paid to Hodgson Harris was impressive.
Mm-hmm.
So we hope to, keep that going forward, even if it isn't with this developer.
And just full disclosure, I did go in front of the board and said that we were impressed with what they've done for the open space, but also in the same breath, speaking as a private resident, I'm against what they have because of the density. I live on Weldona, right over there, so I've kind of spoken up against it. But from an open space perspective, I was impressed with what they've done.
What were the types of housing that they were trying to put in there?
Apartments.
Just straight apartments, no senior living or anything like that?
Yeah. They said that it's senior accessible, so.
On the bottom floors.
Yeah.
That
Senior living
it'll
with
be
a.
single-level living,
Senior living with the lowercase s.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think because I was the trustee who said, let's go back to the original vision, where we actually are talking senior amenities. And I think they thought I meant assisted living.
Yeah.
I think there
was a big disconnect.
They got way, they had some rationale for not doing it. And I think
Sandy,
they
did
thought I
the
meant
senior
assisted.
living development behind Costco ever get beyond the original?
From the board's perspective, it did, but that gentleman who owns that land is embroiled in a real personal nightmare, a messy divorce. And
Okay, so.
so he's having to pull back
Okay.
until that's all settled.
Because that was also a senior, that was, when I saw that presentation, that was senior, like
That-
55 plus
a bunch
living.
of, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that actually included assisted living, and it included unassisted, independent, then assisted, then full care. So,
I'm very interested. My sister told me she'll ship my father out here.
Yeah.
I think it is what it is, right? It's years away, hopefully, but we were chatting the other day.
All right, well, unless anyone else has any other changes they want to make to the work plan, do we have a motion to approve the work plan as written?
A motion to approve the work plan as written?
Is there a second?
I second that motion for the 27 work plan.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous? We'll send it up to the board for their approval.
Yay.
All right. Next on the agenda is the outdoor education programming. Wildlife enhancements and encouragement opportunities. Again, this kind of relates back to the citizen science project that I was just talking about. One of the things that we had brought up in the past was potentially reaching out to the Boulder County Audubon Society to see if we could do something with them to encourage repopulation and rehabilitation of the waterfowl. Evidently, that's already happening, so I don't think we need to recreate that. But it does, the idea of a citizen science project does seem somewhat appealing. We could potentially create something ourselves if we wanted to try to track what type of wildlife are in and out of Superior. We could spend a day and actually have people come out and monitor at a specific place and time, or we could try to find a local organization, whether it's the Audubon Society or maybe Boulder County or something like that, and partner with them to do one of these science projects. So I guess just throwing it out there, does anybody have any ideas or reactions to any of that?
Well, I know we discussed promotion of wildlife in the past, and wasn't that our antelope or something joke?
The prong, the
Yes.
prong.
But I think,
The prong.
yes, to your
Yeah.
point, we would technically need to know what we have before and what belongs here before we could do any type of promotion. So I think that some type of survey would be helpful.
And I think it would give us kind of a ground floor data as well for what we actually have, and give us a base for future years. Allison, you've had a lot of experience with this sort of thing in the past. Do you have any any thoughts and ideas or input?
Well, one thing, just to get everybody's feet wet, that might work well, especially for our community and the size, would maybe be the National Backyard Bird Project, where, there's a weekend in February, it's like 3 days, and there's a platform, it's called something like iBird, and you encourage participants to just go in your backyard or to your local park and log the sightings of birds for 15-minute periods each day. And that might be something that, just for everybody to kind of advertise it, and no matter what the number of participants are, it would be relevant data for the national bird surveys. And I think it also goes kind of global, and there's a lot of statistics that come through from it. So that might be something interesting to look at.
I think it's a great idea.
I agree, but since you have lay people participating, how do they identify the birds if they don't know what they are? Is there a little guide?
Yeah, so especially because people have cell phones, usually you start off with color, and so say yellow, and then you go to yellow, and then you go, certain types of head and size and things like that to narrow down the bird type. So within their website, it's a formal website that has all the instructions on how to participate. So it's pretty well thought out, especially if people are interested, that they'll look through the information to kind of figure it out.
So should we try to look at that website, before the next meeting and then talk about it? So then we could plan how to blast it out to the residents to say, this is the site, this is the weekend.
I would say it's the Great Backyard Bird Count. Yep. We'll forward this out. Allison found it for us earlier. But yeah, we'll get this out to the group to look at. So yeah.
The other thought that I had,
No,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
The other thought I had, just because we had it with the archaeology students did the mine thing, is that there might be some opportunity, and I don't know how we would connect, but of CU either Boulder or anywhere around that is interested in wildlife that would, I don't know how you'd say, oh, come to our town and do your project here, but that, but someone who actually has some training and
That's kind of the same line of thought I was having is, my son just had a homework project that was, observing the weather for 5 days. And I almost wondered, could we try to work with a certain grade level in one of the, the school systems or something to try to, 10 minutes of observation, 3 days a week or something like that.
That's a great idea.
Yeah,
It sounds
fifth
really
grade
similar to what they
would be
did with
good.
their other homework. I don't know how much flexibility the teachers have in their curriculum, but,
Yeah, they would like
might
that.
be worth checking out.
That's a really good idea. Does anybody have any connections to teachers to ask what grade level this sort of thing would hit? I assume it'd be elementary school.
I live across the street from a teacher at Superior Elementary, so.
That be
Fourth grade is the year that they do Colorado, right? So like my son just did his diorama a couple of, right before the November break. But that's the year that they learn all about Colorado and the wildlife that live here and something. So it might be, that might be an appropriate age, or a little older. I think younger than that, we're not,
Yeah.
it's too much pressure.
yeah.
on
And
them.
middle school's too
Yeah. Maybe you combine that with Allison's idea, and she can get the resources from this event, this national event, and it can be done with fourth graders. And then the teachers don't have to create all the programming.
Right.
I think this is great.
But
So-
fourth grade sounds nice, yeah. What time of year do,
February.
are birds out
Are they
in
back then?
Colorado
Is
in
that
winter?
when they come back?
That's
or-
when
Some of
they
them
do
surely are,
this
but-
full
Yeah.
weekend
The,
surfing.
the next count is
I guess it is about maybe.
In Colorado or in other places?
And
Just
nationally. So it
nationwide
must
they're
be,
doing it.
maybe they're trying to figure out migration patterns too as part of it, to know where.
I'm
you
guessing
see
they
the-
do it quarterly or something similar to that. It just says the next count is on February 17th through the 20th.
When's the next one thereafter?
Probably late May, though.
I say that's not readily available,
Well,
but
and if it is in May, that's when we do our bird migration hike. So we could also, if there is the next one, then maybe that's a possibility.
Are they still in school?
I think
though?
it makes more
Or-
sense.
They're out then, but
Well, I think they
Or
go
no.
to like the 25th.
Yeah,
right?
May 25th.
It's close to Memorial Day.
yeah.
So are they in or
Yeah,
out of
depending
school
on-
May 20? They're still in?
May
They go to
25th
the
is when they
Friday
get
or
out.
the Thursday before Memorial Day, right?
yeah. It's probably on here somewhere, but I can't find a calendar or anything after this February date that says when the next one will be.
Well, they're always looking for those end-of-year activities, so you maybe could do it in February, and oh, by the way, also in May,
Mhm.
as one of those close of school sort of things to keep the kids occupied.
Yeah.
Into our hike.
So I'd say let's all, we'll circulate this website. If anybody has any other ideas that might be good type citizen science type stuff we can incorporate, then bring that too. But let's come ready at our next meeting to finalize an idea. We can reach out to the teachers, the 4th and 5th grade teachers in the area to see if gauge some interest, and we'll go from there. Any other thoughts on this topic before we move on? All right. Our next topic is the outdoor education programming.
I'm just going to go over some quick numbers and dates. Everything turns into zero.
While you're pulling that up, Allison, can I ask, I've been kind of out of commission, did anything ever happen with the books that we talked about doing in the lending library and?
Fell through the cracks on my side.
The last update I remember, we weren't sure that it was legal in Rock Creek, right? Through the homeowners.
Putting up your own, the HOA doesn't allow it, but there are, I think there were 4 throughout all of Superior.
I only know of one here in Old Town. That's the only one I've ever seen.
There's one in Sagamore. There's
One inside, one there, and there's one in the park.
yeah, there's one in Community Park. Yeah, and then I don't remember where the 4th is.
There's one in Community Park.
Yeah, right by the field. right,
In front of the
Williams
turf field.
yeah.
The Girl Scouts put it up last year.
Yeah. I thought about it recently and then realized that now it's cold and probably not as trafficked. So I think this is something we could probably take back up in the springtime once it starts to warm up and there'll be more activity with them again.
So I'm going to go over some quick numbers from last year for the different programs that we hosted. We have the How to Haze hike, which we're thinking about changing it to Living with Coyotes hike this year. I met with Ashley, and one of the reasons we thought that would be appropriate is How to Haze is a very small part of the actual program that she hosts and educates on. Mainly, it's just so many different items about living with coyotes that she goes over, and it's kind of morphed a little bit from specifically just How to Haze into more of how coyotes relate with the environment in the town of Superior and how you might come across them in your yard and behaviors and when they have their dens and things. So one of the things we talked about was changing it, the name of Living with Coyotes Hike instead of How to Haze Hike. And, you know, we were curious about how the group felt about that. Last year we had 29 people enroll in the program, but that number doesn't mean that that's how many people attended. Typically, with an enrollment of 29, it could mean probably about 45 people, or, you know, if people bring their younger kids. Sometimes that number is more true, but for example, getting into the weeds a little bit, Jeff and Paige, 51 people enrolled. We know there was over 200 to 240 people there. So just keep that into perspective when I go over these numbers. But mainly with the Coyote Hike, we wanted to know how the group felt about Living with Coyote Hike.
I think that makes sense.
Yeah, How to Haze doesn't really make sense to me, so.
Yeah, and that was kind of a historical name that kind of stuck with the program, but as it's changed and developed, we felt that that was more appropriate.
I think it's better that it's less confrontational too. You're living with them rather than going automatically hazing them. Yeah. Well, and it's clear that that's still needed. I mean, I still see coyote stuff on that 0027 Facebook page all the time. There's a lot of people still don't.
And I'll send out these dates to everyone, so you don't have to write it down if you don't want to. But currently, we have the schedule for January 21st from 9 to 11. It's a Saturday. And it's a good time earlier in the day when coyotes are more prone to be seen, you know, out and about. The next one we've scheduled is February 25th. It's another Saturday. It's the Winter Wildlife Walk. And basically what Ashley does is takes everyone out on a hike and look for tracks and different animal behaviors in the winter. Talks about like how you can tell the difference between the tracks of a coyote versus a dog. You know, it's just more of a single line. And we've scheduled these two already because we start our marketing and programming, which I have a couple guides I can pass around, and you could take a look at to see how the marketing of the outdoor education programs is sent out into the, you know, to the residents if you haven't seen it before. And last year, the Winter Wildlife Walk enrollees were 19. And sometimes the weather necessitates the program to be postponed, you know, especially with these two programs because it is in the winter. But we've still had good attendance, even though last year we postponed, I think, Winter Wildlife Walk twice. And the second time it worked out great. But typically the second time, if the weather is still inclement, we will cancel that program for the year, just because then we start getting closer to our next program. So the Arbor Day event, Ashley also has a booth there, and it's the Living with Coyotes booth. One of the things that we've also talked about, which was mainly an idea from OSAC, that all of the programs will have topics on leave no trace, erosion, and staying the trail. So instead of it just being, we thought, one program, we were going for a more holistic approach to where these ideas would be incorporated in every program, just because it goes with every program.
I think that's great because we've seen a lot in the engagement that seems to be one of the things that people don't understand, you know, the effects of social trails or going off trails. So I think that's great to incorporate that, to try to get that out to people.
Yeah, and that was what we thought. And you know, the more opportunities of contact where that message is sent through from OSAC, we thought the better. So, you know, she would still do her typical types of programming, but we were going to add on this these couple of topics that seem to pertain to it.
And I think that this year's Arbor Day event, just because I know that they're planning to move it down to the park, the new park next to El Dorado K8.
The yet to be named park.
The yet to be named, but, you know, have that sort of be the opening. I think we'll actually get a lot more attendance.
And the weather's
year.
always interesting.
Well, the weather's always interesting, but I think it's, hopefully, we'll get a lot more attendance. Though we get pretty good attendance down here at Founders, too.
So we thought that sticking with the beginning bird walk, you know, last year we had 40 enrolled in that program. And so, like I said, not to be redundant, but could mean a lot more with more children. And then if we wanted to do, say, one of these citizen science survey type things in February and say, hey, learn about this, and then come to our bird walk, and maybe potentially if there's another one that sometime in May, that would be a cool segue into that. So far, that's Saturday, May 20th is kind of what we've scheduled. The next one is something that OSAC is going to need to make a few decisions on. As far as the date would be the first thing. National Trails Day is Saturday, June 3rd. We've been moving it to a Sunday the last couple of years. So I wanted to know if the group was okay with June 4th, which is the day after. It's another Sunday, which everybody seemed to like.
That worked really well, and we always did the first Sunday in June, so I think that's perfect.
Okay, great. And one of the notes that I had was, you know, we had talked about, you know, this past event that we did this year and maybe having a tent because of shade and it's really hot. And so one of the things I checked on was the size of the Arbor Day tent was about a 20 by 40. It was approximately $500. And if you thought that that size and amount was appropriate.
That's the
That's a
size
purchase
we.
price?
No, it's a rental price.
But they come and
And
come
they
and
set
set
it
it
up
up. It's
so-
the one that you guys stand under to do and then the art is under, so.
I had no clue they were that expensive to rent.
Well, they're a little bit under 500. I rounded, but approximately.
I think it's a good size. That would have fit the people for the snake show and the bird show would have been able to be underneath the shade.
Yeah, I think that's sufficient. We'll have to continue to follow up to make sure that we get the area properly mowed, so we have an area to actually set that up.
Yeah, that would be the biggest thing over there is where's the best place
We
to put
may
it.
check because did you see that big pavilion there? That the new shelter, the shelter at the new park has a lot of tables in it. And then there's the one on the east side too that could accommodate 4 tables or so.
Are you talking about switching it from the Colton Trailhead over to the new park?
Oh, no, forgive me. I'm on a different event. I'm on Arbor Day. Okay. Forget what I just said. Rewind the tape.
So does everybody feel that that size of tent would be appropriate? And, you know, because what I'll do is, since we have the date, I'll reserve it and make sure that.
That
I
should
think-
be a good size, yeah.
You've seen the tent, right?
Yeah.
It's over there. I think that's probably, I don't think we need bigger.
How many people do we have generally?
We probably have.
Throughout the day, we had over 300.
Oh, so.
But for each of those events where we'd have people gathering,
It's probably between 50 and 75 because, you know, the kids are small.
yeah. But they're trying to get close anyway, so something like that should be perfect still.
Do we want chairs or do we want to leave it grassy for people to sit in?
I think it depends on what the mowing looks like. If it's, I mean, a lot of it is like the natural grass out there, so pretty prickly. It's not like something that's easily sat down
You
on.
might want to have some chairs.
Yeah, I think.
Chairs in the back for the adults.
Yeah.
The kids can all sit on the ground.
I mean, the amount of chairs we had this past year seemed to be about right, because
Yeah.
kids or parents had a place to sit down. The kids up close anyway.
There was a lot of people standing though, like around the bathrooms and
Okay.
Yeah.
you know how a lot of people were sitting on that other side also. I don't know.
But I think if we move it up on that ledge, if we can, then it's, might be better, yeah.
And one other thing I just want to make the group aware of, I'm going to have to call out locates for that site to put that tent up. And depending on the findings there, it may result in the orientation of the tent being, or the location being maybe somewhere other than you may have in mind. So if you could just be open, that would be great because, you know, depending on where different electricity lines or irrigation lines are. Hopefully, we can kind of leave it flush and kind of towards the middle front as, you know.
Makes sense.
You could put on the invitation, bring your own chair. You know, people
Oh, yeah.
have them. I would rent the same amount as last year, but say bring your own chair if you want to be assured one.
Mm-hmm. It's a good idea. We haven't put that in the past.
And those of us who do soccer usually have one in our car.
Yep.
That whole time.
Great.
But we, yeah. that's-
So the next tentative date is June 16th. It's a Friday night for Jeff and Paige. We are checking into booking them. Their price may have gone up a little bit. It typically does each year. They're just so popular and fabulous. And one of the things that we've had a problem with in the past, if you've attended this event, you'll know, is we have no electricity in the location in Founders Park where we've been having it. So one of the thoughts was to move it, you know, just throwing out some different locations, Asti Park, Grasso Park, perhaps the new park.
Oh, I'd love to have a musical event up there.
Yeah.
So, you know, I can check to see the possibility of that if they have electricity up there. And if you don't know, Jeff and Paige bring a bike to Founders Park, get an audience member to ride their bike to power their audio equipment.
Oh, that's funny.
And a lot of times it like, oh, hold on, guys, we've got to
Got a little harder.
pedal harder. Yeah. So I thought one enhancement to that, because of this audio problem issue we've been having, is to maybe try to move that. And since a lot of people do, you know, it is around dinner time, a lot of people go and grab pizza or whatever. If the group wanted to think about having like a food truck, like a pizza truck or a taco truck or something like that,
That's a great idea.
Great idea.
people could come out, a local business could profit, and it could be convenient for everybody and, you know, fun. So that was an idea that we talked about.
I think having a food truck or multiple food trucks will help attendance a lot. It would certainly encourage me to be there.
And there is electrical at the new park in both.
Yeah. I think the new park's a
pavilions.
great idea.
And it'll be, there's a new committee that was just authorized at Monday's meeting called CAPS, Cultural Arts and Public Spaces. And the purpose of that is placemaking, to have special things that really make us cool and lend a great community vibe, and from the way we look and the art here, but the programming we have here and the community building we do. And this is very much in line with that. Plus, if you've been out to the new park on the east end where the pavilion with the pergola arms, that great lawn is designed to have people bring chairs and watch events. So I think it really is a cool idea.
I also think that this is a program that OSAC came up with. It's been very, very successful. And to take it maybe to that next level, these are a couple of things we might want to think about to enhance the program.
Those are great ideas.
Okay, moving on. Nature at Night, nocturnal flyers. So our first one was this year, our night hikes, and this is the Bat and Owl hike. And we have it scheduled Friday, August 4th. From 7 to 8 after dinner. And one of the things you want to keep in mind about these programs, they're scheduled with a lot of attention paid to sunset times and moon phases, because it needs to be bright enough to see. You don't want everybody falling or, stumbling on things. And one of the ideas we talked about was getting maybe red flashlights to hand out during this. And if you're not familiar with it, a red flashlight keeps you from being night blind. So you can, light up the path and see where you're going, and you could even shine it in each other's eyes as kids, or your kids shining it in your eyes, and you won't be night blind or starstruck. So one of the thoughts to enhance that program this year would be to have a giveaway of little red flashlights at the beginning of the program, and then the kids can kind of, hunt around the park and look at bats and owls and things. And one of our ideas was also to give parents bat box plans. I remember OSAC year before last, we had discussion about bat boxes. So
I don't remember that. What is it?
a bat box, it's basically a square box with an opening that it's like a birdhouse,
Yeah,
but
there's a dowel inside where they hang. Yeah, they're pretty easy to make, but they're
So
great for
that was
mosquito control around your
just
house.
a couple of enhancements to that program. We had 30 people enroll at that night hike. So people filled those night hikes. We had no problem getting to our max.
I attended that with my family. My boys loved it. Unfortunately, we had to move it off of the full moon.
Right.
Because of weather. It was a thunderstorm. We had to move it, but.
Right. And that's the problem with the night hikes, is if they get moved, chances are it will not be the full moon or the new moon. But we still wanted to do it because we were excited about it.
No, it was really excited, and the kids, and hopefully Ashley can get an amplifier on her phone to do the owl screech, because if she does it, an owl might screech back at us.
That's cool.
But it was well attended, and the kids really loved it. And
so the next one is our ever popular bug hunt. It's funny, this year we only had 12 enrolled in that program, but I know that at least 30 came to the program. So there's a lot of the younger set come. What Ashley does is she has nets. They sweep through the grass to see what they catch. She has boxes with magnifying glasses. So once the creatures are dumped in, the kids can see them. She talks about the insects. And they also do water. So she'll scoop water, and then they'll look through the water. For that one, we've got Saturday, September 2nd. This, I have it highlighted in blue because it may change. We weren't sure, and I think our low enrollees were due to the fact that this is Labor Day weekend.
Yep.
And we did it that weekend last year. So one of my thoughts is that we move this one. So if the group is, we try to keep them around the same time each month, but, from prior years. But this one, I think, may necessitate.
That makes sense.
Okay, great. The last one is our second night hike of the year, and it's the one for coyotes. October 6th, it's a full moon. And it's kind of in the dusk hours. It's getting darker, but it's not completely dark yet. And that's so, you could see the coyotes. Last year, again, full registration, 30 enrollees, and it was really successful. So the group may be aware that we have an extra Ashley event or program each year that we usually save for different things. It may be we've seen a lot of coyotes out, we want to do another coyote program, or we've seen a lot of snakes in town, so we do a different snake thing. This year, we really didn't have anything that came up issue-wise in town as far as wildlife. That was really on the radar. So I don't know if you recall, but we had sent out a call for somebody from OSAC to go to the Brownies at one of the schools, and no one was able to go. Everybody was busy. So I asked Ashley to go, and so she presented a little program for about 40 Brownies, local kids at the school. And, she went over Leave No Trace. It was almost the end of the year, so I knew we had this extra one to do. So we went ahead and had her go to that, which was great. But next year, one of the thoughts we had was to add a potential art and nature program, which is really kind of trending right now, to get the kids out in nature and do different things like building or art. Some of the ideas were air dry clay, where you take acorns and things and you stamp it in the clay, and then it hardens, so you have this ornament or something to hang up. Nature shadow painting and drawing is where you take large sheets of paper under the trees, and you can draw the shadows of the branches and things, which is kind of neat. So these are some of the different ideas. We could have different stations or something like that. And, depending on where we think we could find the most material for these types of activities, one thought was like Grasso Park. It's a cute little park. It's right behind here. It's very underutilized, but they have lots of trees. They have the historical homestead and a barn out back.
It's next to the creek. I think it's a great idea.
It's next to the creek. Maybe as downtown Superior develops and the Coal Creek area develops more, if we have some type of event on this side, it may morph into, coming down the creek and looking at naturescape or, different things like that. And one of the things we weren't sure about the date or the timing, maybe sometime in July or so, I'm not sure. And then the potential to collaborate with our new cultural art and
Public space?
Public space advisory committee.
Public spaces.
Yeah. So that was just something we kind of thought up and threw out there for something different, like we did last year with our night hikes. Maybe we put in an art component.
So when I was at Rocky Mountain Estes Park with the kids, they did photo paper too that we took.
Solar paper.
Yeah, the solar paper, and
Yeah.
they actually hang on my Christmas tree. We made 3 ornaments with plants and things like that. So another one that might be quick and easy. That
I love that. I loved that when I was a kid. It was great. And if you're not familiar with it, it's just this piece of paper, and you can put leaves and stuff on it and put it out in the sun on the sidewalk, and then a little while later you take all the stuff off, and it basically has like a negative of
Oh, cool.
the shapes that you put on, quarters, whatever you want to put on it.
Yeah.
Huh? I think it's a good idea, and I think doing it in the either summer or early fall time frame makes sense when it's still warm. That way we maximize participation.
And I think it's a great one to do with that new CAPS committee. I think it's, one that, working with them, they might have some
They're,
ideas.
by the way, having a meeting Monday at 6 p.m. if anybody wants to bop in. It's sort of the 3 or 4 original members, and they're going to expand it to 9. So I love all this cross-collaboration. I think it's perfect.
You said this upcoming Monday?
Monday.
Monday.
And I'd actually say if it ends up at Grasso, we would include the historical committee as well. They could
No, that's not a bad idea.
do
They could,
something.
talk about the buildings and the machinery. That might be really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's been great. I've done it twice with my kids through the 2nd grade field trip thing, and it's very informative.
We also took evaluations of all the programs. Every program, every evaluation was 5 out of a max of 5. So
Nice.
Yeah, so I don't even have to really show you comments because they're like, Ashley is great. We saw owls on roofs. You know, I mean, just the feedback was nothing but positive.
That's great.
Did you see a lot of coyotes when you did the night hike?
I don't think they did.
Oh, bummer.
I was just going to give this to you. Take it.
I think since, you know, the kids are loud, to be truthful, like the kids are chatty and loud. We didn't, but the kids and the adults, we learned a lot. But it's hard to see them, you know, but the kids were really excited and
I
folks.
think it was probably 75% of the time I'm out.
Yeah. But part of it is the adventure. It's at night. It's in nature. They're going on an adventure at night outside, and just getting them outside and involved is great.
Yeah. All right. So, moving to our updates and look ahead. There was a trail outreach event that we co-hosted with ProStack that took place on November 16th. The purpose of that was to specifically discuss 2 of the proposed trails that are currently under design. One trail that's up on Coyote Ridge, and then the second trail, which is a connection from the El Dorado K-8 school out to McCaslin. The neighbors that are adjacent to each of those received mailings, so they would be aware of it. There's a good handful of people who showed up. Patricia and I were there, along with a couple people from ProStack. There was concern about the Coyote Ridge Trail. Ultimately, what I think it came down to was, A, is it necessary, and B, it was a little bit too close to the houses, and did it need to go on that exact path? I think after lots of discussion related to erosion and the damage that had been caused by the 2013 floods, people understood that, yes, it is necessary to have more than just social trails out there, and that actually having a real engineered trail does make sense. I think Patrick Hammer was there in listening to some of the comments about the exact route. I think we might be looking at potentially moving it a little bit, but that was mostly what it came down to. I think there was really just one person who was fairly against it, and it was because it went right behind his house. The other trail, the one that goes through El Dorado K-8, again, there was one person who showed up who was very much against it, and same reason, it went right behind his house. There were several other people there who thought, they said it was a good idea. The guy was mostly concerned about, I think he was saying it was going to create a ruckus or...
Well, it's that, and then because it dips there, it tends to be wet in that particular grass area. So I think he came, but he also had leeway from some of his neighbors to express the same opinion. So yes, it was one person, but I think there's 6 houses that back up onto that sort of small greenway that would go through. So they definitely expressed their concern. I think we were able to say back a bit too, though, that if we put the trail behind on McCaslin, you might get a social one. People don't go through there now because there's nowhere to go.
Yeah.
But if we put the trails that we are looking at going down McCaslin, which people there at the engagement felt we needed. There's no sidewalks on McCaslin, so you cannot, walk down. And we explained our rationale of wanting to get down to the open space areas. But if we tried to explain if we put it there, that might be a logical place that people will go through. So it might be a place that it is worth an engineered trail, so it doesn't have the muck and the other things that are some of the concerns. But
and beyond that, it creates direct access to and from the school too.
So I think
Where it was left was we encouraged everybody to continue to provide comments if they want to get their neighbors to come talk to us. We'd truly love to hear what they had to say as well. That we weren't making any decisions right away, that these are still under design. It was really just a first step in trying to make sure that they were aware and that nothing was being sprung on them and that we could start a dialogue. The next item, the Rogers Farm
But,
concept.
Ken, on that.
Yeah.
So what's the next step?
The next step, I think, is we more or less, I think we're kind of in a holding pattern until we get the designs from the firm
Okay.
showing exactly where they would be, what it would look like, and then
And what it would cost, I
and
think.
what it would cost. More or less to finally build a firm understanding of exactly what we're looking at.
Didn't Patrick say that both those trails would be concrete, not crusher?
Yes, all of these will be concrete except for the one on Coyote Ridge. That one will be an engineered dirt trail, I believe.
Why are they gonna be concrete?
I believe
The
that.
board
Yeah.
requested that these be concrete, from my understanding.
Which,
The ones going behind McCaslin and then the one cutting through, that it would be concrete. It
Yeah.
wouldn't be that was I think that's what Patrick's.
Yeah,
Patrick was
Patrick.
quick to come back with their concrete, and it didn't seem like there was
Yeah.
much room for discussion.
the standard policy is where there's a chance of washout, they must be concrete.
Yeah.
And I think that
Um,
might be why
yeah.
on those areas.
I guess I didn't know that. That I didn't know if it was washout or
I
not.
think I've heard Patrick say both things. Both.
Okay.
Last time he said it was because this was the direction we got from the board, and I think before that I've heard him say if there's a chance of washout, then yeah, it's always concrete.
I can definitely see the bit of risk on McCaslin. There's
Yep.
considerable slope there.
My personal opinion is you don't have to necessarily do concrete because it's much more expensive, so you constrain your number of miles you can do with
Mhm.
the same budget. But there are certainly advantages to
I
concrete.
personally prefer crusher
Yeah.
Right.
in most instances, but.
Okay.
So do I.
So I think maybe that's worth you guys checking out before your next meeting. So you're in full understanding and in full agreement where you do crusher and where you do concrete. That's certainly in your domain, I think, to check that out.
Yeah, knowing that green belt, I could see how that could get washed out.
Yeah, that one I think we definitely were interested in. Well, that one, I've heard him specifically talk about that one. That one needs to
Has
be
to be.
concrete for sure. Okay. Rogers Farm concept plan. This was presented to the board on November 28th. It did not include a potential access point to the Shan Shan Trailhead that we were hoping might get included. I don't know what will happen. There was not a strong commitment from the board that they absolutely loved what was presented. I don't know if the developer is going to come back with something else or what their thought is. I was there. I brought it up in public comments again to see if they could incorporate something like that. So the seed's been planted. I don't know what'll go from there.
Yeah. Lukewarm reception by the board again, quite dense. The lots were, the typical lot in Original Town is 7,000 square feet, and many of those owners historically have bought two lots. They're long and skinny, and they bought two lots and then put their house in the middle this way. They reduced the lot size to 4,500 and with a bigger footprint of home on it. So it was gonna, the fear was that it would look like this, is it sixplex over here by, everybody seems to know what I'm talking about, the Arsenault property. So, again, we had another density-oriented meeting. So, they're going to have to come back, and if they choose to, they have a use by right, in that it's already platted to look a certain way going back to the 1970s. So they could always do that, but that is a lot less dense than what they're hoping to do. But a thought on, because Ken comes, I cannot say enough how important it is that one of the members of this committee appear before the board whenever there's a subject, and there almost always is on every agenda that overlaps with your charter, to be there and to refresh for the board what's on that night's agenda that is relevant to open space and what open space committee's opinion on it is. And Ken's been really terrific, and then Trish fills in when Ken isn't there. But the great thing about it is it keeps the OSAC name in front of the town board. And so maybe it's worth a email to Matt and Stephen, the guy who does the, works with developers, to just reinforce with them that this is very much a priority, and that when any concept plans come forth to them in the early stages, they make that clear again, that they might consider, because that is not on the top of mind of a developer, right, to incorporate that. It should be on top of mind of staff, and it's top of mind of board, because you've mentioned it numerous times, but it wouldn't hurt for that to get incorporated in the plan. It seems to me like that's the way you're going to have a chance of success on that.
We can do that.
Just out of curiosity, Sandy, do you know how many homes they were going to put there and what the acreage
but
is?
on my mind is a little.
It was in the 50 range, if I believe.
It was foggy. No, I thought it was 86.
Right here, Rogers Farm?
86 on Rogers Farm.
Was that going up? Or are
No, they
considering,
were all
like-
single family. They were all single family. Yeah.
I mean, this does not seem that big to
Wow.
take that many units or houses.
Yeah.
So there were two concepts that were presented. One was 56 single-family homes, and the second concept was 67 single-family homes.
Okay. And how many could go on there originally? 40?
Yeah, that was further down. I think it was in the 40s, but I don't
Yeah.
see it.
So 67's 50% more than 40-something. You know, that's the type of magnitude we're talking about in terms of.
And that's
change.
taking out commercial, because the thought process, they would be commercial.
So
Yeah,
the one,
that's with some commercials still in place, right?
The one-
Or was the 67 all
it
gone?
takes that out, and then the
Yeah.
56 leaves
Okay,
those for
yeah, okay.
commercial.
yeah.
How many are going in Newtown Center?
Town center?
Yeah.
Town Center.
So
The
there's-
potential for 1,400
So this is where we're hoping they
dwelling
leave
units,
something
but those will
open,
be
but-
not all single family. A lot of that will be mixed use, multi-family, et cetera.
Golden, between Golden and Rocky Flats.
Yeah.
Yeah,
How close those are.
yeah.
So that's something we'll keep an eye on. I certainly am fine shooting in.
Another thing regarding Rogers, you guys have been very effective, and we'll get to it on the next item on the Coal Creek Corridor in downtown Superior. You may want to really put your attention on Coal Creek Corridor on Rogers Farm and sort of figure out how you want that treated.
Yeah. Certainly should have some sort of vision for both sides of the road, right?
Mhm.
There is not one right now.
It's a good point.
Perfect. Okay, yeah, so the next piece, or next item, the Coal Creek Corridor. A FDP was presented to the board this past Monday on December 12th. That was for the enhancements to the corridor that we had seen in the past, and the board approved the FDP for construction. So it is moving forward.
So Ken's being very humble. I will say, because I've been liaison to this group for 4 years, And this is such a stellar accomplishment. You should all be happy about and proud, because I do not remember how Coal Creek ended up just as the unimproved part of the Superior Town Center and the massive PDs we've done, but it was unimproved. And had this group not done the hard work and stayed the course on it, it would not really, we were referring to it Monday night, having town staff get Ian Anderson and Matrix involved was brilliant. But had you guys not stayed the course, et cetera, where this all coalesced with this guy from Matrix, who knows what would have happened there. And it really, they call it the jewel in the crown jewel. It's beautiful. If it looks anything like in real life, like it looks on paper, it's really going to be spectacular. So good work.
Yeah, and I think that all started before you and I even. I think we had recommendations on that before you and I even joined, or at least before I joined.
Yeah, I think it started the year I joined, like 2013, and we've been, and it was the hill we said we would die on for the downtown development. Like it really was. Like we really tried really hard to.
They kept taking more and more of the open space away, and we said, fine, we're drawing the line in the sand.
Yeah, I mean, that really was it, that we said this was going to be the one that we were going to say no. You couldn't, we wanted it to be a draw, not an afterthought. So it's exciting that
So
it's going to be a draw.
kind of a related topic, I was going to talk about this later, but since we're on the subject, I was at the sports stable, it was last Friday night, when they having the grand opening for the golf simulators and all that. And they were, I didn't tell them I was on this committee or anything, but I was asking them about what it was going to look like. And then he was quick to pull out a laminated presentation to show me, oh, well, this is, they have all this. And where I thought Park 1 and Park 2 are, that are kind of between Sports Stable and 36, from what I've seen in renderings or remember at least, he was showing a parking garage. And so...
Well, no, the medical office building will have its parking. The medical office building is the one building over from where Impact Sports is now.
Okay.
I call it to the east. Is it the north? I'm directionally
It's going
challenged.
towards the
highway.
So it would
Yeah, there's going to be one more
north,
building in there, and in the
northwest.
back's going to be, in the back of the building's going to be parking, right?
Okay.
And then the park doesn't go quite that far.
Okay. Well, like I said, I didn't rip it up and take it out of his hands or anything. I was just curious. I was kind of interested with if they were showing this to lots of people, at what point it became a problem for us on this committee. But I think it's probably just a misremembering
Any pretty
of
pictures
myself.
don't matter. What matters is the PD. So they have to abide by
And
the
they're-
plan.
No, but I do think that your point is well taken, that people, but this is how,
expectations.
this is how people get, what I saw was this, and I swear I saw a piece of paper that said it was going to be here, and I mean, so I think that's a.
Yeah.
That corner of what could be a field is kind of northwest catty corner from Impact Sports a little bit.
Right. Okay. Yeah, it's probably just a conceptual thing
Yeah.
where I'm
Well, and
looking at
who
a piece
knows-
of paper in a building,
Right.
Before any of it has had groundwork done. So.
Yeah, and who knows what's to scale and not.
Right.
Well, it's interesting because when we took the hike out there, the stake that was out there, there was no building. So it's interesting to go out without those, like the stake for the corner of the field.
Yep.
It's interesting for trustees, too.
So, next topic, the equestrian event. Again, that went off really well. And we, at our last meeting, we discussed sending thank you gifts to Jim and his daughter. Those got shipped out. Allison, thank you very much. So that's gone full circle. So that was another super successful event. I think that's something that we're going to want to keep on our radar. I think we should talk about it again for next year. Jim said that he had a great time and would love to do it again. I think it's something that we might want to put a little more research into. I think it was a little bit more expensive than we had hoped. And
What was the major expense?
the insurance.
The insurance was more expensive than we had.
And
I thought that was a known cost.
it wasn't known until we got close and we got his signature on the documents and everything.
And how much was it?
It was closer to 1,000, right?
500-ish?
No?
I thought 500 is what we estimated.
I thought we were going to try to cap around 250, and I think it ended up. Allison, you remember?
It was $50 over the amount that the.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Oh, I thought it was more than that. Never mind
Plus
then.
Yeah.
Well, plus a gift, yeah. But
I do think it could use
From
more
your
promotion, though.
perspective, was it expensive? Or were you concerned about the expense?
It's up to the committee,
If
their
it was-
budget, but if you want to give another program to compare and contrast, our Snakes Alive, we had approximately 75 people. It was approximately $250 for Snakes Alive and I think we ended up having, how many people in attendance at
The morning was packed. All slots were taken. The afternoon was
It was
less.
pretty sparse at the afternoon. I mean,
Yeah.
not sparse, but.
But we only ended up having like 3 days of advertising for
I know.
it. So I think because of all of the things and getting the insurance,
Yeah.
I think if we know that we're going to do it and we have it out we could easily fill or decline the second
Yeah.
session, like you could do either or. We kind
I
of,
think we blasted it out a few different ways for, our morning filled up, which the maximum amount of morning slots was 12 people.
yep.
And then the afternoon, I want to say we had
I thought we had,
6
4 or 6 in the afternoon.
something.
No, well, it was weird because the guy that boards the horses or where they're boarded at, like his kids or something were there too, so it was more than 6.
But they weren't.
I would say it was 9, so they were riding as well.
Oh, okay.
But
yeah.
I do think we could have a ton more people, and the moms that I spoke with said that they just caught it last minute and think that it would be a great turnout if we promoted it
Yeah.
more in advance. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think we definitely have to limit it. The horses have we can't have 30 people showing up. Like I think limiting it, but everyone who attended, at least I was at the morning session, thought it was fabulous.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
loved it. I mean, I think for that part was great, and Jim and his daughter did an excellent job. And then they brought horseshoes, so the kids decorated, got their name on a horseshoe and took that home. I mean, it was great all in that, but it is something that it's not going to be like the snake thing where we could say, 200 of you show up and
Yeah.
touch snakes and make your mother touch the snakes.
And I guess that's the difference between the
Yeah.
programs and, what the committee's decision is,
Yeah. And I certainly think, even though if we're looking at pure return on investment per person and per dollar or whatnot, it's not there. But I don't think that's how we necessarily need to measure it. I just think we need to make sure we do our due diligence to see if there's something else that might be out there that might have more horses available. I mean, just to make sure. I mean, Jim did a great job, and if we want to do it with him again, we're certainly not going to be going down the wrong road. I just want to make sure that we have maxed out what we
Yeah.
can to see if there's a way to get more horses in, or see if there's what else is out there.
That's a good idea. There's all those stables down in Arvada, that maybe they could bring in more horses or something like that.
And a more formal stable, versus a private citizen will typically have
Insurance policy.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah,
But would they charge?
I'm sure.
they would,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but
But if we spend $550, that could be, I don't know how that works.
Right.
yeah.
Does anyone know Janelle Slater? Because she has 2 horses. She lives right up behind Costco.
Well, I think when in the springtime, we can probably start doing the due diligence on this again
Yeah.
and get into it.
I think it's a unique opportunity for people. I mean, I was remiss that we were out of town that weekend because my kids both would have loved it.
Yep.
So
So the next topic, Trail F. Trail F, just to remind everybody, is that trail over off of Colton. I think we're calling it the Superior 15 now. Pretty much right over near where the horse event was.
Chili Fest parking.
Yep. The trail that we had proposed over there received approval for the contract for construction by the board on November 28th. So that's being moved forward for construction. I don't know what the timelines are for when it'll be finalized, when they're starting or anything like that, but that will be going in.
Is that square ever going to get a property or built on?
I think that's something,
Determined.
yeah, the board has talked about a lot of different possible uses for it. So I think it's just something in the back of the town's mind.
Does that trail just connect the bottom concrete trail to the sidewalk?
Yes.
Okay.
It's like an elbow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And it almost kind of has an S shape.
Because of the head.
Yeah.
So Karen, I didn't hear your question. You asked what's happening to the Superior 15, the land?
Yes.
I don't know, but it's going to be exciting when it happens.
But it wasn't purchased till,
It's really so precious that we want to make sure we use it the best way.
Right.
So
Yeah.
we're like being really careful. And what's exciting is ProStack is going to be starting back up reconsideration of the town community center concept based on the research a couple of years ago. The board deliberately did not have it on the ballot because we could have floated a referendum to see if there was community support to fund a community/rec center, and for various reasons, we chose not to have it on last year's ballot. The big reason is there are some property tax pops that the community's approved that they're going to have the reality of paying on this next property tax assessment. There's going to be a pretty hefty one from Rocky Mountain Fire and then a hefty one from Boulder Valley Schools. Has nothing to do with the town's assessment of, but this is all voter approved, and we wanted to have that reality check so people understand their property taxes before residents commit to yet another thing, property tax assessment. So to me, that's good stewardship, we represent the residents. So, but it was very interesting how Louisville did have their referendum on the ballot, and they did, I think, a really, really great job of educating their community about that, seeking input about what's needed and all that kind of stuff, and that passed. And so they're going to proceed with that. So ProStack has asked to pull this one out of the mothballs, the study we did a couple of years ago, and do a lot more community engagement on it. So that seems to be sort of the number one concept that might happen
Great.
there
That'd be
if I
amazing.
were to project, depending on whether or not, that comes forth. And then what it includes is the big question mark as well.
I was a part of that very first focus group for the rec center for Superior before Lakeshore got built.
Mhm. Oh, wow, good, yeah. So, yeah, participate in their public process. You're all residents, you all get to participate.
So I had a few other things on the list that I remembered after we sent out the agenda. One was the Zaharias property concept plan, which we already talked about. And then the last thing was sad to announce Sandy's no longer going to be our trustee liaison. Mark Lasis will be our new liaison. So Sandy, thank you so much for everything. And
Well, I'm the alternate, which is why I'm here today. He had a event he had to be at, and Mark is very capable.
It's my neighbor.
All three of the newly elected trustees, I think, are huge, huge assets. And Trish, next time.
I told them I'll just sit in the back and heckle. I can do.
Hey, you did very well, but 9 people, I mean,
No,
yeah.
we had that doesn't usually happen. And, but I am hopefully going to be the liaison for the new cultural arts and public spaces. I only have 2 more years on the board, and we needed succession planning on OSAC, and then I wanted to get something new started that I really think will start to define this as such a cool place, you know, and it's just been a passion of mine for a long time, how we look and how we feel and how we interact. So come join us Monday night, 6 o'clock.
I'm gonna attend
Good.
Monday.
Excellent. You know you can be on 2 committees.
Again?
Yeah.
Okay.
You can. If 20 people apply, you won't be able to. But it's always hard to grow these committees. So on this, I wanted to say what a huge positive revisioning OSAC has done over time. I came at a time when OSAC was reeling from an advisory committee rewrite that I was part and parcel of. And what happened is a lot of our committees had the same members on them for 15 years, and then they got their friends to join, et cetera. Well, that's great, but it precludes having all the influx of new residents and the new energies and new visions and new goals, et cetera. So in 2010, when 2 of us were elected, we did this, we suggested this rewrite and this idea of term limits and all this kind of stuff. And it was upsetting to people who had really gotten these committees going and, you know, didn't want to give up, et cetera. All we asked them to do is, they were all grandfathered in for 2 years. And then we asked them to take a break for 1 year, and if there were still openings, reapply and whatnot. But nonetheless, change is hard. And so this committee took the brunt because 5 people walked off the committee at one time. And it took years to rebuild. And because the public spaces, the public land, you know, the acquirable open space is a fixed commodity. It involved revisioning what this committee was about. And I think you guys have really done a great job. I think it's grown into a real solid committee, fully stocked with members and everything. So I think it's really on really solid ground, and look forward to being the alternate. And I'll be here occasionally. Trust me, I'm not going to let any of this slip.
Well, I do want to say you were an integral part of that, of course, Sandy, and you will be terribly missed.
So I'll be around.
Perfect. Well, unless anyone else has anything else for the good of the order?
I do want to
Yeah.
put another plug in for CAPS, okay? So, because CAPS is one of these committees, if it does its job, it's going to overlap everything else because it's all integrated. And if it ever steps on your toes, it's not because it's turf building, it's because there's this natural integration, right? But one of the first ideas mentioned at CAPS is we're trying to change it away from the mindset of just putting art in the park or art in the roundabout or whatever, a bronze horse or whatever, or that moose, where is that, up in the mountains somewhere, that one. We got to talking about, and of course budgets don't increase, you understand, so you got to do a lot of this very cost effectively. And we turned to the idea of Purple Park.
Yep.
Why is it Purple Park? And Rita Dozell, trustee, happened to be there, and she's got a recollection I envy. And she said, it's the purple irises that used to be in Purple Park. Karen, did you know the irises? And that was before my time. And so simply making that suggestion to staff at no extra cost or anything, starting in 2017 when the flowers are put in, they're going to put, they're putting purple plantings in Purple Park.
They
So
are there on the walkway by my house.
Okay.
So the city does put those in there.
right, but there's going to be more massing of purple and lilac and all that kind of stuff. And hopefully this will be a trend that continues, so people don't ask, why is this Purple Park? Because it will be obvious.
Look at the purple right
See
there.
It doesn't have to be all purple, but you know, a simple little concept that just happened because somebody asked the right question, you know, that kind of thing. So I thank Allison for, as she put the plan for Jeff and Paige and all, you know, what was the other one that was going to Art and Nature. That's the kind of natural thing. So keep it in mind and bring all ideas, and we can make it all happen. So thanks.
With that, we are adjourned. I will be around for the holidays. Taking shifts off.
So cold. It's supposed to be 4 degrees on Saturday.
You know, I'm supposed to have a stucco guy come over tomorrow, because tomorrow was supposed to be warm, but is tomorrow now supposed to be?
No, I think it's supposed to be 50 tomorrow.
Oh, good. He's like coming the one day, I'm like, yeah, but will it all crack off the next day?
Wasn't it the problem, the dampness?
I wanted to go, so I had a pen event, so I did a documentary screening at El Dorado on screenagers.
They're saying
Yes, so it's a documentary about
Phones and.
electronic gaming, all this stuff, so so I had that Monday night, and then the night before that, I took the Boy Scouts at my house with the Rocky Mountain Rescue that we had done through. And they came and, do you know that they are on track to do 200 rescues?
Yeah, I didn't get it online.
They're all volunteer, so they're out every like 2 days.
They need to get the BCC.
Rack,
This
but,
Yes.
yeah.
There's 70 people.
I like that she
and they
troops are there. Like, it makes it
I know, but that's,
Every county has one.
That's the crazy thing.
so they, like I said, 200.
And my landscaping, 2
They
days
hike in
before
that
Thanksgiving.
50-pound
The previous Friday, it snowed.
So then go find the
And I was so.
person or whoever got injured or lost, and then hike them up and out.
It's like kind of
And they all call out.
Well, 2 minute miracles. I was otherwise,
Why do you have, you know, and one of the guys basically said, because, you know, they're all hikers, they're all this, it's the challenge. It's like, oh, I've got to hike, I've got to rock climb down, strap in a 200-pound man, and hike, yeah, and haul them up and then hike them out. So like, they're just gotten to that point where they're like, just going hiking is not.
What I've also found is a lot of people who get rescued, they then like realize like,
Okay, those
oh my
are the
God,
two.
I'll just
I remember
volunteer. I can
last
do
year we
this.
were at the Drool.
It takes a year to get on the.
Oh, yeah. As soon as
Like,
it's
if
up.
you guys ever are gonna make it to a town board meeting, let me know in advance, let me know.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm happy to help
For
with
sure.
stuff for you.
I've just been around for the past several, but anytime that I see something coming up, I'll always send an email.
8, almost, but about 6.
I'm always confused by this.
My son came home from school on Tuesday and told me he was a coder now. Because they did something in school that was some iReady type of.
Yeah, we do
coding.
iReady.
Oh, yeah, they did a whole coding project this year,
Yeah.
right?
So that's
Or
my
during
secret.
coding week.
That's my secret sauce.
So, do you have a grandson, maybe granddaughter? Granddaughter, fabulous.
Tiny thing. She's so tiny. My son is like, I forget how big he is every quarter or so.
down there.